Hi Flosstube, it's Christine here with a special treat for you today, something a little bit different from my update video. This weekend I finished a Mill Hill Buttons and Beads kit, Old Time Harvest, and I thought that I wanted to finish it Stitcherista style. And if you're not familiar with that, you're probably living under a rock. Anyway, she does this canvas style finish where she does kind of scrapbooks on it, and when she first showed this on her video, I just knew I had to try that because I used to scrapbook and I thought, wow, that is brilliant. I have to try that. So the first time that I'm going to try it is going to be with the Mill Hill because I figured that would be a good thing to try first because it's stitched on perforated paper. So it's kind of like I'm just going to treat it like paper and I don't have to worry about doing the fold over flat fold. This video is just me working on that, finishing it her style. I just want to give her credit. 100% of the inspiration for this project, the way I finished it, comes from her channel, and if you haven't checked it out yet, I'm going to link her below, Stitcherista, Danielle, and I just want to thank you, Danielle, again for the inspiration because I love finishing this way, and I'm definitely going to do more of them in the future. With that being said, there was some trial and error. And you'll see, I was going to just scrap that footage and I thought, I'm going to put it there just to show that, sometimes the finished product, when you see these Pinterest style finishes and, you think people just do it really easily, and it, for me, didn't come without a lot of trial and error. So I decided to leave that footage in there. So the first half of the video is me doing it wrong and then me regrouping and doing it a second time, which I end up liking the finish. So I'm just going to give you I'm just going to show you what it looks like now. The finished piece is this, and I'm going to show a close-up of this at the end, but you can kind of see it right here that this is how it looks all finished on canvas, and I love it. Without further ado, I'm going to let you watch that. I did a voiceover because it's hard for me to really film anything in my house with it being quiet, so I just decided I wouldn't care about that and I'll just voice over. So it's kind of more like a Christine Reacts video. Christine reacts to how she doesn't do things the right way a lot of the times. So anyway, I hope you enjoy and be sure to check out Stitcherista. She has at least 2, if not more, probably more on the way of her finishes that she does in this style too, and they're beautiful. So, all right, enjoy. Hi guys, I'm going to attempt to do a voiceover of my project here, and I'm going to try to not state the obvious but just talk about what it is I'm doing. As you can see, that's my Mill Hill Buttons and Beads, and I believe it's called Harvest Time, and I'm going to be attempting, like I said, probably in my introduction, I don't know, I haven't filmed my introduction yet, but this is going to be sort of a Stitcherista style, Stitcherista inspired finish for my Mill Hill kit. I figured because it's done on perforated paper that this would lend itself pretty nicely to it. So I'm just going through showing you the stuff that I use. That frame there is a frame that I bought at Walmart for 97 cents. So for the budget-friendly crafter, I thought that was pretty good. So you got my needle nose pliers, Mod Podge, a little bit of a little, what are those called? A little floral sprig that I got at Hobby Lobby. Paper trimmer from way back the years when I used to do some scrapbooking, and then I got just an assortment of some stick-on buttons and that little bow, burlap bow. I'm not really sure where I'm going with it at this point, so this is the first time I've ever tried it, but I decided I wanted to try using a frame because, well, it has the little what do you call that, little stand on the back, and it was just inexpensive, and I figured that maybe decoupaging on wood might be easy to do. I don't really know why I tried this. I just thought, well, maybe I'll try something a little bit different than Stitcherista uses on hers when she uses her canvas. The way I was going to approach this, I remember, is, oh, look at me. I don't know metric, so I had to turn it the right way. Us Americans in our non-metric system. Anyway, as a side note, I'm measuring that. And I think originally I had cut my piece of paper to be a little bigger because I was going to decoupage it on and then trim the edges. And probably if I were to do this again, that is what I would do. And you'll see why. Because when you have something exactly the size it needs to be and you put it on, you're kind of committed. So there's no adjustments now. Really the only decoupage, oh look at me, I'm looking at this paper trimmer that I used like 10 years ago when I used to do paper scrapbooking, and I couldn't remember. As you can see, it's well loved. It's got glue all over it. And so I used to scrapbook many years ago, and so I have some of the tools on hand, but I don't have a lot of the perishable stuff, but you know, some of the tools that I used. So what I'm doing here is I measured the frame, and then I'm just trying to cut it down, and yes, I kind of mess up my edge there. I'm like, okay, I need to remember how I used to do this many years ago. I think my blade is kind of dull anyway on that. So I'm cutting this, trying to remember how to use this thing. And I am terrible at measurements. I always cut wrong. And, you know, measure, for me, it's like measure 70 times, cut once. So I'm cutting this the exact size of the frame. And where was I going? I was going to say something about scrapbooking. Oh yes, I did paper scrapbooking and then I switched to digital scrapbooking and loved that. Still, where was I going with this? I'm not sure where I was going with that. Anyway, I don't know. But moving on. So I'm getting ready to do some decoupage on this. Oh, I know what I was going to say. With the decoupage, if you've been watching me, I've been doing some Altoid tins, and I've been doing some of the Mod Podge decoupage on the Altoid tins. And one thing that's different with wood versus the Altoid tins is you have some play and some give. It doesn't stick to it right away. So it's like you can kind of reposition stuff when you're decoupaging it onto a Altoid tin. But I find with wood that that's not the case. So I'm going to do a little time lapse here so you don't have to sit and watch me do this real time. So one thing that I forget to do here, and I should know because I've watched Stitcherista when she was doing hers, that you need to decoupage on the back of the paper. And I think that's one place where I went wrong with this. To redeem myself, I can tell you that I have since redone putting a piece of decoupage scrapbook paper on this wood frame after I did this later on, and it was successful. So I kind of see what I did wrong. You can see, look there, I don't have it lined up on the edge, and I'm like, okay, let me just reposition that. Ooh, it's not repositioning. Okay, well, that's okay. Let's just work with it. Oh, paper's starting to wrinkle a little bit. Ooh, okay. Yeah, there. I think I can smooth it. Yeah, that's when one of those rollers that Stitcherista showed would come in handy because, you know, I could just roll those right out, you know, and take this out. Oh, like, I'm going to redo it. No, that's not going to work. Okay, well, looks like I'm committed. That's kind of what I was thinking when I was doing this, so I'm just sort of reenacting that, where I'm like, okay, I can surely just push these wrinkles out. Quickly find that's not the case. I was really starting to think, yeah, decoupage fail, exactly. But no, I'm not going to give up. I'm like, well, you know, I'm a problem solver. Let's just cover up most of it with a new piece of paper. So as you can see, I'm aiming for like about a half-inch, maybe a half-inch border of the pumpkins. So I can have a nice orange, you know, border around that, cover up a lot of my ripples, because apparently I think that I'm going to be able to decoupage the second piece of paper on much better. So here's where I'm thinking, okay, gee, I hope I get my measurements right. So I've cracked the code on my paper trimmer there. Now I know how to use it again. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm moving right along. And that's where I'm thinking, something seems a little wrong. It's probably small, but hey, let's just go with it. well, you think I cracked the code on that thing. Keep in mind, it's hard to do this stuff with a camera right there too, because it's kind of in your way a little bit. This camera floating around, you have to make sure that everything sort of stays in the picture. So, okay, here, let's see. Ooh, yeah, that didn't work. You can't even see the orange. Okay, let's try this again. This time I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And I only have 2 pieces of, oh, keep in mind, I only have 1 piece of the pumpkin scrapbook paper. And I only have, I only have 2 pieces of the orange. Okay, a little bit better. I can live with that. I wanted a little bit more of a border, but hey, that's good. So we'll go with that. So we'll just do that. Oh, and if you're wondering, notice on the frame it had rounded edges. And my scrapbook paper has the corners on it still. It's because I just found it would be easier to, after I decoupage on top of it, to then trim those around. You know, I should have just did that with the whole frame, because when I ended up doing this over again, that's what I did. I just did an oversized piece of paper. And then when I was done, I just, you know, after you put the first, well, actually, before you put the first coat of decoupage on, I just went around the frame and trimmed it so that it was the size. So anyway, I remember when I was doing this. So this is an evening. I believe this was Saturday evening, pretty late. So I was tired anyway. I'm not a night person. I'm a morning person. I should have never started something like this late at night. Once again, I didn't put decoupage on the back of the paper, which I should have. So, oh, and if you're wondering, yeah, you know, why I picked a frame that had a hole in the center, you know, I just figured I was going to be layering all this paper on top of it, and it really wouldn't matter if there was a hole there. So that's why. I mean, you could easily get a wood plaque, you know, or use something like that. I don't know why I wasn't using a canvas like Stitcherista did, because that is, you know, really kind of when I set out to do it. I just thought, you know, I was just going to show something different. Like I said, just a different take on somebody's idea, so I wasn't 100% copycat. But as you see, I will end up being 100% copycat, because it just works better on the canvas. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to try this again on this little wood frame, just to, you know, I like how it has the little stand on it, and, you know, like I said, it was cheap, 97 cents at Walmart. I mean, so at this point, I'm just really not liking this project anymore, and I'm tired, and I'm feeling like I just, you know, I didn't even wait for the decoupage to dry. I just kind of decided at this point that I'm done with it. It was already, I can see that the next sheet was kind of starting to ripple. What was happening is the ripples from the paper below were starting to show through, and yeah, it was just, I give up on it here shortly. And I get myself set up with a new, yep, like the next day, morning, I just woke up and I thought, you know, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to change my filming spot over by the window. It's a little bit brighter. And this is what I end up coming up with. So if you're wondering, wow, we didn't get to see you do that. Well, what ended up happening is before I filmed, because I'm so terrible, I just sort of assembled everything. I'm so terrible at doing measurements, especially when I'm being filmed. So I took time to basically, I thought, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be stressed out trying to build this stuff on top of the canvas. What I'm going to do is just assemble a scrapbook page. And when I'm done, I'm going to put that scrapbook page onto the canvas, because then it just seemed a lot less stressful to me. Now, what I'm doing here wasn't my original idea. I was actually going to put some sort of yellowish strips of scrapbook paper on, but I really wasn't sure how I was going to attach those, and then, you know, I was going to kind of pull some of the yellow out of there. But I had, once again, left over from some of the supplies when I was doing my Altoid tins. This is some tape. It's really flexible, almost like metallic tape, that I found probably, I don't know if I found it near the scrapbooking stuff or near like the washi tape, whatever that is. I don't really know what this was. It's so awesome, and it really works well on the Altoid tins, because it kind of almost looks like you painted it metallic. And I thought, you know, this is a Mill Hill kit, and although it doesn't look very blingy right here because of my lighting, but there's a lot of beads in there, a lot of sparkly beads, and I thought, you know, I need to bring out the sparkle in this project, so let's just let's just put a little gold frame around it. And it happened, so I trimmed down my perforated paper to about the size of I think it might be just a little bit bigger than the tape because I end up going through and trimming it. Now this tape is nice because it's repositionable, so I love that. I do not like being committed when I'm sticking things down because I can usually never get it right the first time, but this stuff is very easy to work with. I don't know what the name of it is. Like I said, if you look at, I found it at Hobby Lobby near the washi tape. It was on an end cap, and it comes in gold and silver and different metallic colors, and it's just really easy to use. It's kind of almost even flexible. So I go ahead and put that on here, and like I said, I thought, you know, I'm going to just assemble a scrapbook page, and then it's a lot less stressful because you're not building, you know, one thing on top of the other until you have it all set up. So I did all my cutting and measuring, pretty much used all the tools you saw earlier on. I just used my little paper trimmer, and I had to do, oh yeah, because I didn't have any of that pumpkin paper, and Hobby Lobby is the only place that sells it, and they're closed on Sundays, so I had to make do with some other scrapbook paper that I have. So I salvaged, I just love that pumpkin, those strips of the pumpkin paper, so I wanted to incorporate them somehow. And as you will see, I do use them, but just in a smaller quantity, and I had to go get some different scrapbook papers. So I'm almost done with this. I thought I did a time lapse on it, but who knows, maybe I did. Just didn't do it fast enough. But you get that positioned on there, and I was sort of thinking after I did that it didn't, I wasn't sure if it looked good. I wasn't sure if I liked it. That's one thing about why I don't scrapbook anymore. I never was satisfied with my pages. I wanted to keep messing with them and changing them and messing with them and redoing them, and I could never just call them done. And, you know, that's kind of how I feel about my cross-stitching finishes too. You know, I realized, why don't I finish more things? And I realized the other day, I kind of had an epiphany. I don't want to commit to a specific kind of a finish on a project because I always think, you know, something better might come along that I like better. And then once you commit to finishing something, you know, pay for it to have it framed or turn it into a pillow, and then you decide you don't like it later, I always have that feeling that I'm going to someday want to change how I finish something. And so you'll see even with this, I try to do nothing on this project that alters the stitching except one thing. I do put a little small adhesive in one part of the stitching on the back, but I try to make it so that if I ever want to disassemble this project and do something else, I can, because it's all stuff that's going to be done around it. So I'm just doing a little prep work there. I did that. Now I'm getting ready to paint this isn't acrylic paint, it's tempera paint. I don't know, it came with my kids' homeschooling set. Their school sends them these tempera paints, so I've had just so many of them. Yeah, I'm realizing that I forgot to get something to dump the paint down on, so I quickly go and get something for that because that's just not going to work, dumping it on. So it's the first time I've ever painted on a canvas, and even though this canvas wasn't one of the real cheap ones, I think this canvas was $15, but I got it 50% off. So still, that's kind of expensive, you know, for a canvas, because if you mess up on it. So I think, but the problem I was having with this paint is it wasn't coating. It coated okay, but when I let it dry to do a second coat, it was interesting because when I went back to do the second coat, it was almost taking up what I had already painted. So I'm sure it was because I was using tempera paint. I don't know what those are versus acrylic paint, but I had it on hand. I have a lot of it on hand, so by golly, I was going to use that, whether it worked or didn't. And what I end up doing is, because I can tell after I did the second coat that it really still wasn't covering good, I ended up just putting a coat of decoupage over the whole thing to sort of seal it, and then I did like a third coat of brown. And then when I was all done, I ended up putting on top of the whole thing yet again another layer of decoupage because it is a sealer. And I figured, you know, I don't want I don't even know if this paint, it's probably washable paint. So, I mean, if this ever got water on it or something, that brown paint would probably leak. So, or, smudge or leak or get on something. So I didn't want to take any chances. So I don't show me decoupaging this whole thing, but that's what I end up doing. I think this is pretty much all you see of me dealing with the canvas. And then I put that off to dry, and you get the idea. I basically do what I just said I did. So then, next, what am I going to do? I'm just kind of doing some of the, oh yes, this is when I grab my little, so I took apart that little sprig that you saw at the beginning, and I don't know why this is acting like it's going in slow motion right now. Anyway, this is where I channel my inner Priscilla and Chelsea and do a little flower arrangement on a little burlap bow. And I can tell you that that bow, I made that bow. You didn't see me do it though, because it took me 30 minutes to tie that bow. Me and bows, we just don't work. And then I forgot to check my glue. As you can see, it's clogged. I don't know why it's going in slow motion here. I happen to have a toothpick nearby. And yeah, this was kind of one of those things where I had to play around with off camera because I really wasn't sure how much I wanted to add to this bow. And I do end up adding a few more of these when it was done. That just looked a little plain. And then what else is there to say about that? Yeah, I'm not really good at floral arrangements. I mean, you'll probably never see me do a finish like Priscilla and Chelsea because I do not have the Priscilla and Chelsea gene. I took a class once on flower arrangements, so I sort of know how to do it, but I can never get it to look nice. It never seems aesthetically pleasing to me when I do stuff like that. So I don't know, never say never though. I mean, I have been finding myself walking the aisles of the craft store thinking of potential things that I can do with my stitching, and that little sticker I added there has actually a lot of sparkle to it. You can't see, but I wanted to get this all sort of assembled and drying. Okay, back to the assembly of this. Now, I have a disclaimer here. I'm going to be using some double-sided tape for this assembly, and anybody that scrapbooks, or maybe you want to attempt to do this, I can tell you that the way I do it with this double-sided tape is probably a more tedious way. If you've ever walked the aisles of the scrapbook section, you'll know that there are about a gazillion different types of adhesives to make assembling scrapbook pages easier. And I probably chose the one that's the slowest because it's this double-sided tape that you have to peel the paper backing off of. There's glue dots, there's those little dispensers that, you just like run a strip of adhesive, there's glue sticks, there's all different kinds of ways to assemble the paper. So you don't necessarily have to do it this way. I just had this on hand once again. These were from when I was doing my Altoid tins. I needed a really strong double-sided tape that would hold stuff onto the metal, the tin. So that's why I chose this. So I can't even say now. I think that, and that tape right there I'm using, that's a little bit of dimensional tape. Once again, you can get some that's acid-free. I don't think this is acid-free. I went into my husband's office and I dug some dimensional tape that he had up there. And so, yes, like I said, disclaimer, if you'd like to use acid-free stuff, get your stuff at the appropriate scrapbooking aisle. I don't even think that double-sided tape over to the left over there is acid-free. It says it's used for scrapbooking, but nowhere on it does it say acid-free. So that piece that you saw me put right in the middle is the only thing that actually touches my stitching. Actually, that one kind of does a little bit too, but I really, didn't want to put a bunch of acid-free stuff all over the back of my stitching. And then I don't know, if this project holds for 5 years, 10 years, I'm good. It's not going to be some museum quality piece. I try not to get too bent out of shape about that stuff. So I wanted it to float up above the page a little bit, so that's why I put some dimensional tape on that. So we got that good to go, and yeah, so Like I said, I think I'm going to time lapse this because it takes me quite a bit of time. I really struggle with getting the paper backing off of my double-sided tape. And I didn't go overboard with tape. I mean, like I said, this is kind of like a scrapbook page. I mean, I didn't, you know, I don't really think it was necessary to cover the entire back of it or to have the edges be not quite attached. I mean, you know, it looks like a scrapbook page when I'm done, and that's what I like. So I thought, yeah, this is easy. I had considered using the spray adhesive like Stitcherista does, but I have used that before, and I'll tell you, I made a mess out of me and everything around me with that stuff. I sprayed it on everything. I got it on my hands, and then everything I touched, I got it all over. So I'm really challenged when it comes to that spray adhesive. So I knew better. I better do something that I'm a little bit, I don't know, just more apt to not get all over. I mean, if it were really nice outside, I would just maybe assemble this outside and then use the spray adhesive, but this works. Like I said, just another take. I wanted to just add, yeah, here's where I struggled. Here's where I was like, oh, okay, there was much easier ways of doing this, taking this stuff out. So this is actually starts to be time-lapsed here because who has time to watch me pick the back off of these pieces? Oh, and what I like about this too is this tape is that until you press it down hard, it's slightly repositionable. Once again, I like that. I don't want to just stick something down and say, okay, you're committed. So I had to remember how I had my original layout. So I just love that pumpkin paper. Isn't that just the cutest? I need to go get me some more. Not much to say about this, so I'll just let you enjoy it. Luckily, I was paying attention and didn't do the pumpkins upside down. That would be something that I would do. But did you see how it kind of stuck to the paper a little bit, and then I just pulled it right off? Yeah, I used to have one of those little dispensers. Those were nice. It kind of just dispenses a line of adhesive, and that would have been perfect for this, but like I said, I did scrapbooking so many years ago. When I switched to digital scrapbooking, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I switched to that about the time that my kids were toddlers, so it was kind of nice. I could just sit on, I can do all the scrapbooking I wanted, and all of my, you know, all the stuff that you use was all on the computer. It was nice. I didn't have any mess that I had to worry about always kind of cleaning up or having a spot to do it. So I really liked it. I love digital scrapbooking so much. I ended up actually becoming a digital scrapbook designer, and I even had an online store for a little while where I sold digital scrapbooking kits. It was really fun. I did that for a few years, and like what always seems to happen with me, as soon as I turn my hobby into a business, I completely don't like the hobby anymore, so that's why I don't scrapbook anymore. I did the same thing with my quilting. I probably have mentioned that before in one of my videos, that I used to quilt and I loved it, and then I ended up buying a long arm machine and starting a quilting business, and I ended up quilting everybody's quilts, and it took all my time, and I got so burned out that I don't quilt anymore. So I did that for 5 years, had that business for 5 years. So here I am with my cross-stitching hobby, and so be it. I will not turn it into a business of any type because I don't want to squash this hobby either. So I'm going to take it as a lesson learned and just keep my hobby my hobby. Although you might start seeing ads because I think I did finally decide to monetize my videos. I don't know if I'm going to keep it that way, but it's not really turning it into a business. But I thought, hey, the opportunity is there. May as well see if I can make a couple bucks and buy myself a cup of coffee. I don't really know how much you make when you monetize your videos, but So, as you can see, this really doesn't require any explanation. Everything here is just really easy. I'm just sticking everything on. These already come, oh yeah, when I went back to the store to get some new scrapbooking paper, I found these really glittery fall leaves, and man, it was all the fall stuff's on sale. It's all getting replaced with the Christmas stuff, so I bought these. I thought they were cute. I should have bought another packet of them. So, stick those on there, and starting to take shape. The last thing I have to do is glue that on, but I'm not going to do that until I put the piece on the canvas, because at this point I am planning on putting spray adhesive on the back of the whole thing and then putting it on my canvas, but I think since then I've changed my mind and I'm going to just use that repositionable double-sided tape on the back, because I tried a sample of it and it sticks to the canvas pretty well. It sticks to it well enough. You know, like I said, if this project stays in one piece for 5 or 10 years, I'm okay with it. And so yeah, I'm telling you that I'm going to put spray adhesive on it. And I actually also trim a little off the top and bottom just so some of the brown canvas shows through. So, and then I'm just telling you there that I'm going to use some tacky glue to glue that on. And I think when all is said and done, it turned out pretty cute. So give it a try. It's really fun and it's not so hard. Thanks for watching.